Hello, my name is Nick and I am an inventor of the incredible light up motion reactive GlowBowz. GlowBowz is like a normal violin bow except that it's got a string of LEDs going along the top that light up in different colors, and it has a much bigger frog which contains all of the smarts for making the bow work. The frog is physically large, but the part that you engage with up here at the top is actually about the same size as a regular frog, so in terms of holding the bow and playing, it's a pretty comfortable experience. So I want to make this short video just to sort of explain the basics of getting going with your glow bow and show you a few of the tricks that you can do with it. So first thing you want to do is know how to turn the bow on and off and work the basic controls. So the power switch is over here on the side, and it's just a simple slide switch. So when it's faced towards the end of the bow that you hold, that's the off position, so that's off right now, and then if you slide it towards the tip of the bow, that turns the bow on, so that's on, that's off. Additionally, there's a pair of controls that we're going to use to interact with the bow. So two buttons, which I'm going to call button 1 and button 2. Button 1 is right here on the same side as the power switch. Button 2 is in the back, sitting above the USB charging port. So button 2 is right here, and then the USB charging port is located down at the bottom. So when you want to start using your bow, just slide the power switch to the on position, and then don't touch any buttons and just wait for a few seconds, and let me show you what happens. So I'm going to slide this on and wait for a few seconds, and you'll see all the LEDs turn on really bright for about a second and then turn off. That tells you the bow is on, and at that point you can start using the buttons to manipulate what kind of mode, what kind of effect you want to see. So when you first turn the bow on, it'll start off in effect 0, which is what we call rainbow twinkle. This is just a slowly changing pattern of LEDs that turn on and off more or less at random, different colors, different locations. And this is a nice background effect, not very startling, and it's not reactive to how you're playing. It just sort of does this pattern in the background. Okay, so we can use this mode button, button 1, to change the effect. So if I want to go to the next effect, I can go ahead and press this button once, and let me show you what happens when we do that. So when you press this button, you're going to see two LEDs light up for a moment. Okay, two blue LEDs, and that tells you that you're going into effect 2. Okay, and now we're in effect 2. This is a starburst pattern. And if I want to go to effect 3, I can press that button 1 again on the side, and when I do that, I'll see 3 blue LEDs, and now I'm in effect 3. And I can cycle through my effects by just pressing this button, and I'll see there's effect 4, there's effect 5. If I press again, I'll go to effect 6. Well, these effects are color-coded in groups of 5, so when it displays effect 6, you see there's 5 blue LEDs and 1 red one, so that makes it easier to know what effect you're in. So here's 7, 8, 9, 10, and then when I go to 11, now the 11th LED is green. So it's just an easier way to look at your bow as you're changing effects and see what effect number you're in. So that's effect 11, here's 12, 13, 14, and then if I go one more, it'll roll over back to effect 1, 2, 3, and so on. And I can go backwards by using the button in the back, button 2. So right now I'm in effect 4. If I press that button on the back, I'll go down to 3, 2, 1, and then back to 14, 13, 12, and so on. So you can go forward and backward using these buttons, and basically as you're playing, if you want to switch to the flame effect, you can work your way down to effect 6, and there's a simulated candle flame, and if you want to do the exciting blurb effect, you can work your way up to step 9, and there's a starburst effect, and so on and so forth. So that's one way to interact with the effects, but you can actually do a lot more than that. So I want to show you some of the special features available with the GlowBow. Alright, so one special feature of your GlowBow is it can go into mode 7, which basically displays a small set of LEDs moving up and down the bow, changing color as it moves. And this is kind of a cool background visual effect. It's not reactive to bow motion, it's just moving in a fixed pattern. But if you have multiple people with bows playing together in a group, you can put each bow into mode 7 and have a nice background effect. Unfortunately, though, the bows are doing their own thing. This is basically a random pattern, and so the bows won't be moving in unison, but there is a way to synchronize them. Now, if you turn them on at exactly the same time, that would synchronize them, but that's kind of tricky to do. So here's a trick you can use. If you go to the bow and you press and hold that main button, button 1, hold that down for a few seconds, you'll see the bows light up all the LEDs. Okay, keep the buttons held until everybody in your group has their bow in this configuration where all the LEDs are on, and then simply release that button at the same time, and now your LEDs will move in unison, and you get a nice sort of choreographed effect that way. And while you're doing this, you can change one bow to different modes, and you can go back and forth. And when you come back to this mode, they'll still be moving in unison, right? So it'll remember the synchronization between the bows, and so you can come back. You can set this up, in the beginning of a piece, and then you can switch to this mode when you want to have this effect going across all the bows. So that's a cool feature. So when your bow ships to you, it comes with a set of sequences pre-programmed so that each time you press that button 1, it cycles from effect 1 to effect 2, 3, 4, and so on, all the way up to effect 14, and then it goes back to effect 1. That's not the only sequence you can use, though. You can actually change that sequence, and the changes you make are permanent, but there's a way to get back to the original sequence also. But if you're playing performance with your bow, and let's say you want to cycle between effect 6, 1, and 8, you don't want to fiddle with your buttons to try to change from 6 LEDs to 1 LED to 8 LEDs while you're trying to move from one song to another. So your GlowBow lets you pre-program a particular order of effects, and then each time you press button 1, it will move to the next effect in your pre-programmed sequence. And if you want to move backwards, you can use button 2 to go backwards. So you can program your bow, and that's a nice feature. So let me show you how to do this. And again, the programming is permanent until you change it. So if you load in a sequence and then you turn the power off, turn it back on, it's still going to use that sequence next time that you cycle through the modes. But there is a way to power up your bow so that it looks like the original program. So if you change your program and it's not what you want, you can still get back to the original behavior. Alright, so how do we program the bow? Potentially confusing, but if you mess around with it, you'll probably get the hang of it. Your bow needs to be turned on. It doesn't matter what effect it's in. To enter programming mode, we're going to hold both buttons 2 and 1, so the button in the back and the button on the side. So hold those both down until the bow lights up bright green and flashes a few times. Let the buttons go, and now we're in programming mode. Okay, so in programming mode, what we see is we see one LED lit. It's blue. This is where I select what I want the effect to be for the first step of my sequence. So I can cycle through using button 1. So there's effect 2, 3, 4, 5. They're color coded in groups of 5 as usual. And I can go all the way up to effect 14, back to 1, and so on. Now you can't go backwards using button 2. Button 2 does something different in this mode, but I can hold down button 1 and it will automatically go through my effects. So let's say I want to start with effect 6, which is the flame effect. I use button 1 to select a 6 here. To lock that in as the first step, I'm going to press button 2 in the back and release. And what's going to happen then is you're going to see the second LED flash red a few times. That says I'm programming step 2. And now I get to choose what effect I want for step 2. So I can cycle through to whatever effect I like. And effect 2, we're going to do the rainbow twinkle, which is effect number 1. So we'll go back to one LED lit that says effect 1. Let's lock that in by pressing the button in the back. And now we see the third LED flash a few times. That says we're going to load in step 3. Okay, step 3 I want to do blurb. That's effect 8. So I'll use button 1 to light up 8 LEDs, and I want this to be my third and final effect in my sequence. Okay, since this is the last effect in the sequence, instead of just pressing this button in the back and releasing it, I'm going to press it and hold it until the bow flashes green. So I'm going to hold that, bow flashes green, let the button go, that's it, we're programmed. Okay, so now each time I press button 1, I will cycle through this new sequence which goes between flame, rainbow twinkle, and blurb. So there's effect 1, which is the flame effect, right? Simulated candle flame. Press it again, there's effect 2, which is rainbow twinkle. Press it again, there's blurb, which is the highly reactive state. Press it again, and we're back to effect 1. So now we have a 3-step sequence. 1, 2, 3. We can go backwards if we overshoot. And this is really convenient when you're, doing a performance and you've got a fixed set of music you're going to play, and you want certain effects for each piece that you perform. You just hit the button, and it'll move the bow into the next effect that you've pre-programmed. And this is a permanent until you change it effect. So if I turn the power off, turn the power back on, wait a few seconds for the bow to come up, it wakes up and it starts off in effect 1, which for this case is the flame. I can move to 2, which is rainbow twinkle, 3, which is blurb, and then I can go back to the original effect. So that's convenient for choreographing visual elements to your playing. The one other thing you want to know is sometimes you want to get back to a state where you can play with all 14 modes in order. You don't have to reprogram your bow to make that happen. Here's what you can do. Turn the bow off, and before you turn it on, press and hold that button on the side, button 1. Okay, hold that down, turn the bow on, keep holding the button until the bow turns on, and then release it. And now it's back to its original configuration where it starts off in effect 1. You can go to effect 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, all the way up through effect 12, 13, 14, and then you can go back to effect 1 and so on. This has not changed the programming of your bow, though. The sequence that you programmed last is still in here. This is just a temporary state to let you, play with all the effects if you want to see what some of the effects do and so on.